Like many millionaires, Graham Stephan didn't go to college. Instead, he decided to work full-time as a real estate agent and obtained his license at 18 years old. He started his career during the aftermath of the financial crisis in 2008, but he worked hard, persevered, and eventually used his earnings to climb the property ladder himself. He bought several properties while prices were still at rock bottom, rented them out, and used real estate as a path to becoming a millionaire. In 2017, he decided to document his experience as a realtor, uploading videos to YouTube with a little success. Then he pivoted to making videos on credit cards, which performed extremely well, and he pioneered the personal finance niche on YouTube. This pivot is what skyrocketed Graham's channel, and by 2020, he was making $2 million a year just through his main channel. He expanded this out to a channel covering his reactions on videos talking finances, with his coverage of millennial money garnering mass attention. He'd built his empire and dominated this new niche. He had become the king of finance YouTube. Just like the life cycle of a bubble though, this was not to last forever. His growth was explosive and can be likened to the boom in tech stocks with which his rise coincided. But like all bubbles, following the boom comes a period of stagnation, which for Graham has become all the more obvious throughout 2022. And as 2023 begins, so does the Graham bubble end. Unfortunately, the very thing that allowed Graham to climb to the top of his niche was something he later refused to do: innovate and grow. YouTube's a competitive space with many underdogs grinding non-stop to get to the top, except there is no top. No matter how big you get, there is always untapped potential with millions of viewers just waiting to find you. This was Graham's first grave mistake: his complacency. Yes, he was making millions of dollars a year, and yes, he had millions of subscribers, but there are so many YouTubers reaching for his crown and his content was becoming repetitive. Constantly covering the bubble and the Fed collapsing the market becomes stale after a while. Just like Blockbuster and Netflix, Graham became the legacy whale that slowed down, allowing the young sharks like Jordan Welch, Iman Gadzhi, and Sebastian Georgiou to overtake him. Graham still to this day edits all of his main channel videos, despite the fact his competitors have all stepped up their game and employ specialists to keep the visuals interesting. His content is stuck in 2017, and as Mr. Beast suggests, he needs to take risks.
I want to get your advice from me. I feel like I've kind of tapped out in terms of what I could do on YouTube. I know there's something bigger, I don't know what it is yet, but YouTube is going so well with everything that I don't want to stop what I'm currently doing. But I don't feel the same passion as I did 3 years ago. But it's going so well. So when you look at the numbers, everything is the best it's been. But I feel like there's something else. I don't know what that is, and I'm having trouble finding that.
So your flame's going out a little bit.
It is, but I want to continue with the same path that I have.
Well, I mean, the answer is you just gotta take risks. Like whatever it is that, you gotta take calculated risks that you're confident in. Just like, you know, for me, like the analogy I said before, when we did all those Twitch donation videos, I was getting tons of views, but I just knew like, this will get stale, I'm gonna jump ship before it gets stale, and I'm just gonna do the next best thing. I mean, you have to be a little bit of a visionary and figure out what's the next evolution of it.
All of his other ventures, excluding the Iced Coffee Hour, have either stagnated, outright died, or just failed to perform. Bankroll was Graham's business selling coffee, an industry that is massively saturated and has god-awful margins. It's no surprise that it's struggling to break even, as Graham himself explains.
Today, it's 10 cents higher. The label added another 3 cents. Exterior boxes and packaging, that's 10% more. But wait, there's also the cost of labor. What originally was $1.85 per order increased to $2.45, and each additional item is now almost twice as much to include as it was before. Our retargeted marketing campaigns also became an absolute nightmare after the iOS update, which allowed users to stay anonymous and tripled our cost of customer acquisition. So as of this year, we've stopped advertising entirely.
The Graham Stephan Show has suffered under repeated content and declining views, with a vicious feedback loop dooming the channel to stagnation. Particularly because Graham is constantly in the exact same environment when he's reacting, and simply put, reaction content requires incredibly engaging creators like iShowSpeed or Ludwig who add an element of humor to their reactions. Hey
man, can you please keep it family friendly? Thank you so much.
His vlog channel suffered the same fate, with him rarely posting because he himself wasn't engaging with the content.
Like, it was very repetitive, and it felt like we had to go and do things to make the vlog interesting, because just doing titles and thumbnails every day, or like brainstorming topics, or, you know, just everything. It wasn't that exciting.
It was a money grab and not a venture he was passionate about. When he did vlog, it wasn't engaging and eventually he burnt out. The Iced Coffee Hour is the only venture outside Graham's main channel to have performed well, and the reason for this was Jack was given a profit share agreement, meaning he's motivated to ensure its success and he's prioritized growth and innovation. The reason these ventures fail to see any real success comes back to Graham lacking drive, the ability to pursue growth, to innovate, and importantly, to take risks. With a business generating as much as $10 million a year, there really should be 5 times the amount of employees behind the scenes ensuring growth in the future. Graham's problem is the same one that Blockbuster suffered from: complacency, plain and simple. Now, like every bubble and economic cycle, a crash is what follows stagnation. On November the 11th, the Stephan crisis begun.
FTX went from a $32 billion company to bankruptcy in the matter of just 4 days or so. Sam Bankman-Fried is stepping down as CEO. The 30-year-old will stay on through the Chapter 11 transition. He tweeted this morning. He says, "I'm really sorry again."
FTX goes bankrupt and Graham is implicated.
That's why I'm really proud to stand behind today's sponsor, FTX.
When your entire channel is based on finance and you are watched for your supposed expertise on the subject, it is catastrophic when your most frequent sponsor goes bankrupt and even gets accused of one of the greatest frauds of the century. Now, the downfall of FTX wasn't due to an external factor, rather their ridiculous way of doing business.
So questions were flying about what exactly FTX was doing with your money when you deposited it. Were they just giving it to Alameda Research, which is sort of acting like a hedge fund and trading with your crypto, trying to make a big return? Or were they keeping your funds safe and just practicing proper risk management?
FTX didn't protect consumer funds, instead holding them in its crypto coin FTT. What they didn't gamble on volatile and risky assets, they sent out to other vehicles and wasted on personal projects of vanity like private jets, penthouses, and mansions. They were over-leveraged and irresponsible, but they were also downright criminal. Graham, of course, used FTX2 for his crypto portfolio, so I don't think he had any malicious intent. But when your sponsor is allegedly paying you millions of dollars to advertise them and garner the trust of your viewers, surely you'd research how they allocate and store customer funds, especially when we've already seen multiple other similar crypto ventures crash this year. When they not only sponsor your main channel but also your podcast, you'd think this would be a priority. To the contrary.
I saw that they were backed by really big investors like BlackRock, Tiger Global, and Sequoia Capital, so I didn't think this was ever a possibility of ever happening, but here we are.
In Graham's case, they were too backed and too big to research effectively. Unfortunately for Graham, this apology video did not age well.
I really hope that I'm preemptively jumping the gun, that FTX US is fully backed as they say, that there's not going to be any issue, and everything will continue operating normally. I would love to be proven wrong, be overly cautious, and say all of this for nothing. But I'd rather be overly cautious and remind people to move their money off of the exchange, especially during a time where everything is still functioning.
With FTX US also filing for bankruptcy, and although they meant to operate independent of each other, not only did FTX loan money to Alameda Research, but the sister company allegedly traded with this money. This is a self-inflicted wound, as Graham is primarily solely responsible for vetting and carrying out due diligence for sponsorships. Regardless of his lawyer managing the legal side, Graham should have pondered FTX more, especially with the collapse of big names in the crypto space like 3 Arrows, Celsius, and Voyager Capital. Once again, we see his reluctance to invest into the channel as a problem. He could easily hire someone full-time for due diligence of his sponsors, and he wouldn't even notice the costs. He also didn't even need the money from the sponsors, as he's been netting multi-millions every year, and his attitude to saving and spending ensures that number keeps increasing. And yet, FTX was such a big stain to carry that Graham and his YouTube counterparts decided to private all of their millennial money videos. The worst outcome from this situation is the stain it has left on the Iced Coffee Hour. Dozens of episodes with FTX ad rolls and promoting it constantly has angered his fans, with many infuriated and financially distraught. Some have even argued Graham should donate the money received from the FTX deal to reimburse viewers who lost money. Graham's only successful side venture has now been caught in the crossfire, arguably with how he handled coverage and talk of FTX after it went bankrupt. Complete and utter radio silence. But this isn't even the worst consequence of the FTX debacle, rather it's the precedence of allegedly shady and potentially fraudulent sponsors. Yes, I'm now talking about established titles, a topic that has been trending and covered by everyone in the finance space recently. And guess what creator has been at the forefront of these videos?
All thanks to our sponsor, Established Titles. They're a project based on the historic Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lords or ladies in English, and that means as of today, that's right, I'm officially a lord.
As if it wasn't bad enough already, this is an extremely bad look as established titles are now under fire for their malicious and misleading marketing. Many are claiming the titles were quite clearly for amusement and not to be taken seriously, but many others oppose this view with the belief how it was marketed was fraudulent.
Established Titles does not deny those claims at all, which was the main point of the video. Instead, the company decided to claim that they made it clear that their product was a gag gift, not to be taken seriously, and have never attempted to convince people otherwise. Right now on Facebook, Established Titles is spending thousands of dollars a month in manipulative ads to convince people that they can legally become lords and ladies after buying one of their packages.
The company is now even being investigated for their fraudulent practices by British authorities. Even if we disregard established titles being malicious with how they marketed their product, it sets precedents of incompetence and a lack of due diligence on Graham's end. And unfortunately, there are other examples of Graham promoting a confirmed fraud.
One of the biggest grifters that has ever been on YouTube just got fined $53 million by the FTC for lying to his customers. Now, the individual that I'm talking about in this video is known as Kevin David. His real name is Kevin Hulse.
Oh,
Here we go.
welcome to the crib,
Here we
baby.
go. Thanks, man. Beautiful home.
To be an outlet on YouTube covering financial topics and allowing this to occur multiple times is embarrassing and arguably vaporizes any credibility he had in the first place. Graham is finally addressing the situation with the gravity it deserves, but as he himself said, he let down anyone who watched his channel and relied upon him as a valuable source of information. Whether or not he will recover from this, only time will tell, but it's clear you can never be too careful in the world of finance, and in the world of YouTube, no one stays on top forever.